Hello, world. I'm Jack, and welcome to English Speaking Studio.
I'm Lucy. So,
I think it's something we could all relate to at some level, don't you think? I mean, everyone wants to feel loved and connected. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking into today. What drives these feelings and how we can nurture those meaningful relationships.
And what's so fascinating is that this deep desire to connect with others, it isn't just some fleeting emotion, it's literally woven into us as human beings, like deep down in our DNA, going way back.
So you're telling me love's not just floating around in the air, it's actually part of who we are from the very beginning. So like from an evolutionary standpoint.
Exactly. Way back when survival wasn't just about being the strongest or fastest, right? Our ancestors, the ones who really thrived, they were the ones who stuck together. Like they depended on each other, protection, sharing, raising kids, all that. Those who formed these strong social bonds, well, they had a better shot at passing on their genes.
So basically survival of the friendliest, huh?
Haha, yeah, in a way. Those cooperative groups, they were the ones who outlasted those who were on their own. And that need to belong, it's still part of us, hardwired. It's why we feel this strong pull towards love and connection.
Makes total sense. I was reading something about a love hormone, something about oxytocin.
You're right on the money. Oxytocin is a huge player in this whole love and connection thing. Think of it like a little message, a chemical one that your brain sends out when we have these positive interactions with others. A good hug, a deep talk with a friend, even just petting your dog can release it.
So our brain is basically rewarding us for connecting. That's pretty cool.
That's exactly it. But it's more than a feel-good thing. Oxytocin actually does some pretty incredible things for us physically. Lowers those stress hormones, blood pressure goes down, even helps boost the immune system.
Wow, so love really does make you healthier.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense why loneliness is so bad for you. In fact, the research we're looking at even says it can be as harmful as, smoking.
And it all goes back to oxytocin. When we're lonely for a long time, those oxytocin levels just plummet. And that, unfortunately, can lead to all sorts of negative health effects.
So if we want to feel loved and be healthy, we need to be active about building these connections and making people feel, emotionally safe.
Absolutely. Think about the people you feel most comfortable around. When you can just be yourself, they're probably the ones who make you feel accepted, understood for who you are, even with all your little quirks.
Right, like being able to let your guard down without worrying about being judged. That's emotional safety, right?
Exactly. It's the bedrock of any connection that's truly strong and lasting, whether it's with a romantic partner, a friend, or even family.
Okay, so far we've established that humans are wired for connection. This oxytocin is like our brain's reward system, and that feeling emotionally safe is super important. But what actually makes someone lovable? Are there specific things that make people want to be around each other?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's something psychologists and researchers have been digging into for years. Of course, there's no, magic formula. But there are certain qualities that tend to create those deep, meaningful connections.
Spill the beans. What are they?
Well, this one might seem obvious, but it's something people miss all the time. Being genuinely interested in other people. We're all drawn to those who make us feel seen and heard, understood.
Ugh, tell me about it. We've all been in those conversations where the other person is just waiting for their turn to talk, not really listening to a word you're saying. It's the worst.
I know, right? So think about it. If you want to be that person people are attracted to, that person who fosters connection, try to be the one who listens more than they talk. Ask questions that show you care. Really try to get where the other person's coming from. Be genuinely curious.
So basically, put down the phone, make eye contact, actually engage.
Exactly. Being fully present, really being there in the moment, that's how you show someone you value them and what they've got to say.
Makes sense.
Mm.
And this next one, it's where things get interesting. Vulnerability. A lot of people think you need to be perfect to be loved. But our source material, it suggests the opposite might be true.
You got it. Because, let's be real, who can relate to perfect? It's intimidating and, frankly, kind of boring. When someone's willing to let go a bit, show their imperfections, admit they don't know everything, that's when real connection can happen.
Right, because then it's like, oh, they mess up sometimes, just like me. They're human. Suddenly there's someone you can actually relate to.
Exactly. There's even a name for this, the pratfall effect. Psychologists have found that people who make mistakes or admit to flaws, they're actually often seen as more likable than those who always seem perfect.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. It's like that study where someone spills coffee on themselves and people end up liking them more than the person who didn't make a mess.
Mm,
It's like that little fumble makes them seem more human.
that's the one. It makes them seem more authentic, more real, and that's super attractive because it gives others the space to be themselves too, without having to pretend.
So owning our imperfections and letting ourselves be vulnerable actually makes it easier for people to connect with us.
Exactly. And that brings us to another piece of this puzzle: kindness and empathy.
Okay, so how do kindness and empathy play into this whole love and connection thing?
Well, think of kindness like a bridge, something that connects us to others. It's about extending yourself, offering a helping hand, or even just acknowledging someone's struggles. And empathy, that's being able to really understand how someone else feels, seeing things from their perspective.
So it's not just about these big over-the-top gestures. It's also about everyday kindness, like remembering a birthday, offering to listen when a friend's going through a rough time, or even just holding a door open for someone you don't know.
You got it. Those small things, they can make a huge difference in how valued and seen people feel. And remember, kindness isn't just good for the person receiving it, it's good for the giver too. Acts of kindness, they release that oxytocin we talked about in both people.
So kindness is a win-win. It makes everyone happier, strengthens relationships, and even has health benefits.
Exactly. And when you add empathy to that, you've got something really powerful. Empathy lets us understand each other's needs and feelings more deeply, which guides our actions and how we respond.
So it's not just about being nice, it's about being thoughtful and intentional in how we interact with each other.
Exactly. Think about a time when someone really got you. Like, they understood how you were feeling. What was that like?
Oh, it's amazing. You feel seen, heard, valued. It's incredible.
That's empathy in action. It builds trust and safety, which allows people to open up and connect more deeply.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about why humans need connection, how oxytocin plays a role, the importance of feeling emotionally safe, and these key qualities like genuine interest, vulnerability, kindness, and empathy. But before we go any further, I'm really curious about something. How does self-love fit into all of this?
Ah, you've hit on a crucial piece, and it's the perfect lead-in to the next part of our dive. It's funny, isn't it? We spend so much time thinking about how to be loved by others, but we rarely stop to think about how we love ourselves.
That's true. It's not exactly a topic that comes up every day. But thinking about it now, self-love has to be important, especially with everything we've talked about so far, like being genuine and letting yourself be vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's like what we've been reading, you can't give what you don't have. If you don't have that solid base of self-love, it's hard to really connect with others or experience love in a healthy way.
Okay, so how does that actually play out? Like, what happens in relationships when someone doesn't have a strong sense of self-love?
Well, it can show up in a lot of ways. For
Yeah.
example, someone who struggles with self-love might constantly need validation from others, like their partner, their friends, even people they don't know very well.
Ah, I see.
And that can turn into like a pattern of trying to please everyone, putting everyone else's needs before their own, just to try to earn love and acceptance.
So it becomes less about genuine connection and more about, like, a transaction, trying to earn love instead of just feeling worthy of it.
Exactly. And that can be really tiring for everyone involved. The person seeking validation feels insecure and maybe resentful, and the other person, they start to feel pressured and drained.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do we even start building self-love? It seems kind of abstract, easier said than done.
It can seem that way, yeah, but it's actually more practical than you might think. The material we're looking at, it outlines some really concrete steps you can take. A good place to start is to shift your focus from what you think you're missing to what you already have. Instead of getting stuck on your flaws, try to acknowledge your strengths, talents, the things you've accomplished.
So basically, give ourselves some credit.
Exactly. Celebrate those wins, big or small. Like, remember that time you totally nailed that presentation? Or helped your friend through a tough time? Or even just managed to cook a decent meal after a crazy day? Those are all things to celebrate.
Okay, I like that. But what about when those doubts creep in? It's hard to see the good sometimes when your inner critic is being super loud.
That's where self-compassion comes in. You need to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a close friend. Like, imagine your friend is feeling down. Would you criticize them or dwell on their mistakes?
No way. I'd remind them how awesome they are and how much I care about them. It's crazy how much harder we are on ourselves.
It's a common trap, but the good news is we can actually train our brains to be more self-compassionate. Start by paying attention to those negative thoughts and challenging them. Instead of being harsh, try to replace those thoughts with more positive and encouraging ones.
So it's like creating a more loving and supportive inner voice.
Exactly. And that leads to another big part of self-love, setting boundaries.
Oh, boundaries. That's always been a struggle for me. It always felt kind of selfish, like I was putting my needs above everyone else's.
That's a really common misunderstanding. Boundaries aren't about being selfish. They're about honoring your needs and protecting your energy. It's like setting healthy guidelines for how you want to be treated, how much you're willing to give.
So it's like drawing a line and saying, this is what I'm okay with, and this is where I need to step back.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about learning to say no sometimes, without feeling guilty or like you have to please everyone.
This is interesting because the source material also talks about how setting boundaries actually makes us more capable of loving others. How does that work?
Remember the empty cup idea? When we're always giving too much and ignoring our own needs, we end up depleted, resentful, and eventually we have nothing left to give. But when we focus on our well-being and set healthy boundaries, we're basically refilling our cup, and then we can show up for others in a genuine way.
So it's not actually selfish to take care of ourselves.
Not at all. It's actually the opposite. When we take care of ourselves, we have more energy, more patience, more love to share with everyone else.
I'm starting to get it now. So we've talked about self-acceptance, self-compassion, and boundaries. Are there any other practical things we can do to boost self-love?
One that's often overlooked is simply being present with ourselves. In our busy lives, it's easy to get caught up in the rush, constantly checking our phones, scrolling through social media. But taking even a few minutes each day to unplug and tune into our own thoughts and feelings can make a huge difference.
So like hitting the pause button and actually checking in with ourselves.
Exactly. It could be as simple as spending a few minutes meditating, writing in a journal, or just sitting quietly, noticing your breath and observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
I bet that would feel really grounding.
It can be incredibly powerful. And since we're talking about reconnecting, another important part of self-love is doing things that bring you joy, the things that nourish your soul.
I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So we're talking hobbies, spending time outdoors, listening to music, basically whatever lights you up, right?
You got it. Make time for the activities that make you feel alive and energized. It could be dancing, painting, hiking, reading, volunteering, whatever it is. These are the things that help us reconnect with our passions and remind us what makes us unique.
This is all great, but if I'm being honest, sometimes self-love feels really hard. Like, what about when you mess up or experience a setback? How do you love yourself when you're disappointed in yourself?
That's such a good question, and it shows how important it is to remember that self-love isn't a finish line, it's a journey. There will be days, weeks, even months when you feel more confident and self-assured than others, and that's okay. The key is to be kind and understanding with yourself, even when things are tough. Remember that everyone makes mistakes, and it doesn't make you any less worthy.
So basically, treat ourselves with the same kindness we would offer someone we love.
Exactly. And remember, those setbacks and mistakes, they're often opportunities to grow and learn. Instead of beating yourself up, try to see them as stepping stones.
I love that perspective. So, to recap, building self-love is about recognizing our strengths, being kind to ourselves, setting boundaries, being present, doing things we enjoy, and giving ourselves grace when we stumble. It's about knowing that we are worthy of love and care, just as we are.
Beautifully put. And remember, self-love isn't a one-time thing. It's something you practice every day. The more you invest in yourself, the stronger your foundation of self-love becomes. And the more you can authentically connect with others and truly experience love in your life.
This has been amazing. We've really gotten to the heart of what it means to love and be loved. But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear more about those practical steps for building stronger relationships. We touched on some things earlier, like being genuinely interested, being vulnerable, being kind and empathetic. But are there any other actionable tips you can share?
Absolutely. And that's the perfect transition to the last part of our deep dive, where we'll explore specific strategies for putting these principles into practice and strengthening those connections in every aspect of your life.
Okay, so we're back, and I'm really excited to dive into these practical steps for building stronger relationships. I mean, we've talked about the science and how important self-love is, but now let's get to the how-to part,
Okay.
Like, what can we actually do?
It's kind of like, well, imagine learning a new language. You might understand the grammar and the words, But the real magic happens when you actually start speaking it, having conversations.
I like that. So what are some of the, key phrases in this language of love and connection?
Well, one of the most important ones, and we touched on this a bit earlier, is be present. Sounds simple enough, right? But in our world, with everything going on, it's gotten harder to actually be present with the people we care about.
Yeah, it's so easy to get sidetracked by, our phones or our to-do lists or even just random thoughts. But I bet those distractions can really hurt our relationships, right?
Absolutely. Like, imagine you're trying to have a deep conversation with someone, but they keep checking their phone or looking at their watch. How would that make you feel?
Honestly, it'd make me feel pretty unimportant, like they weren't really listening. Like what I'm saying, even me being there doesn't really matter.
Exactly. So if you want to connect with someone, really connect, try to put those distractions away. Make eye contact, really listen to what they're saying.
So it's not just about hearing the words, it's about absorbing them, thinking about them, and responding in a way that shows you're really with them.
You got it. And that leads to another important phrase: express gratitude.
Gratitude, such a powerful thing. We've all heard about keeping a gratitude journal and stuff, but how does expressing gratitude actually help our relationship?
Well, when someone tells us they're grateful for us, it makes us feel seen and appreciated, right? Like
Yeah.
we matter. It acknowledges the good things we bring to their lives.
And it makes us want to keep doing those things. It's like a positive cycle.
Exactly. And expressing gratitude doesn't have to be this big, elaborate thing. It can be as simple as saying thank you for something someone did, a thoughtful gift, or even just listening to you vent.
It's about noticing the little things, right? Those everyday acts of kindness.
You got it. And those small expressions of gratitude, they can make a big difference. They create a more positive and loving atmosphere.
Okay, so be present and express gratitude. What else should we be saying?
Here's one that might be a little surprising. Give without expectation.
Give without expectation. That sounds kind of, I don't know, idealistic. Don't we all want our kindness to be reciprocated, at least a little?
Of course, it's natural to want to feel loved and appreciated in return, but when we give with strings attached, it can start to feel like an obligation, and that breeds resentment.
Like, I did this for you, so now you owe me.
Exactly. And that kind of thinking, it can really damage a relationship.
Okay, so how do we get away from that transactional mindset and move towards a more genuine way of giving?
Well, the key is to focus on the joy of giving itself, not what you might get back. Think about a time when you did something nice for someone without expecting anything in return. How did it make you feel?
Actually, you know what? Just yesterday, I saw this older woman struggling with her groceries. So I stopped and helped her. And she was so thankful, it honestly made my whole day.
See? Perfect example. You weren't looking for anything back. You just saw someone who needed a hand, and you helped. And that simple act not only brightened her day, but it probably made you feel good too.
You know what? It really did. It's like that saying, it's better to give than to receive.
That's exactly it. Which brings us to another important phrase. Be dependable.
Dependability. What does that have to do with love and connection?
Well, who are the people you trust most in your life? They're probably the ones who are consistently there for you, the ones who keep their promises, the ones who show up when you need them, even if it's not convenient for them.
The people you can always count on no matter what.
Exactly. That kind of consistency creates a sense of safety and stability in a relationship. It tells the other person they're not alone, that they have someone they can rely on.
Like you're a safe harbor for them, a source of support.
That's it. And this dependability, it doesn't have to be about these grand gestures. A lot of times it's the small, consistent things that matter most.
Like calling a friend on their birthday, showing up on time, or following through on the things you said you'd do.
Exactly. Those little things, they show a deep level of respect and care. They show the other person that their time and well-being matter to you.
And I bet those actions really build trust over time.
Absolutely. Trust is the foundation of any strong relationship, and being dependable is a big part of building that trust.
Okay, so far we've got be present, express gratitude, give without expectation, and be dependable. Anything else we should add to the list?
One more, and this one's probably the toughest. Forgive and let go.
Ooh, that's a hard one. Forgiveness can be so difficult, especially when someone's hurt you badly.
It's definitely not easy, but it's essential for any healthy relationship. Holding on to grudges, all it does is create resentment and bitterness, and that just poisons the connection.
Yeah, it's like carrying around this heavyweight. It weighs you down and keeps you from truly opening up to others.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, forgiveness isn't about saying what that other person did was okay or pretending they didn't hurt you. It's about letting go of the anger and resentment so you can move on.
So it's really more for you than for them.
Exactly. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It sets you free from the past and makes space for love and compassion to come back into your life.
Wow, I love that. So we've really learned a lot in this deep dive about what it means to be loved. We talked about why connection is so important to humans, the role of oxytocin, how crucial self-love is, and all these practical things we can do to build stronger, more loving relationships.
It's been an amazing journey, hasn't it? And remember, this is just the beginning. The more you use these ideas, the more natural they'll become and the more fulfilling your relationships will be.
You're so right. It's all about showing up each day and choosing to nurture love and connection in all parts of our lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as you go about your day, think about what you've learned. What small step can you take today